welcome to Perspectives on Faith on Ebru TV. I'm your host, Amir Hussain. Today, we're privileged again to have as our guest Professor Ebrahim Moosa, who is a professor of Islamic Studies at Duke University and Associate Director of the Duke Islamic Studies Center. Welcome, Dr. Moosa.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's a delight to have you on the program again. Could you tell us a little bit about what you do? You teach in religious studies at Duke, and you direct the Duke Islamic Studies Center. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you came to Duke?
Yeah, it's been a wonderful almost 7 years at Duke, and I came to Duke from Stanford University in 2001. At Stanford, I was a visiting professor for 3 years, and prior to that, I was in South Africa, my home country, where I taught at the University of Cape Town. And it's been a very, very productive time at Duke, and having part of establishing the Duke Islamic Studies Center, which is a major new center, but also beginning to develop a major program in the study of Islam across different disciplines at Duke University. So it's been a really exciting time being at Duke.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about the Duke Islamic Studies Center and the kinds of things that you're doing there?
I'm in charge of, I'm Associate Director of Research, and I'm in charge of the research projects at Duke, and some of the projects that I've been associated with in the last couple of years has been one major project on the whole question of rethinking Muslim ethics, and another one on Muslim philanthropy. And so much of my work has been these days focused on the questions of Muslim ethics and trying to explain that to both colleagues as well as to a larger public.
Wonderful. And what kinds of courses do you teach at Duke?
Right now, I teach the normal kind of introduction to Islam classes. I also teach a class on Islamic law. I teach a class on Muslim ethics. I currently am teaching a class co-taught by myself, a colleague from the law school who specializes in constitutional law, and someone from the divinity school who specializes in feminist theology. So it's called Wrestling with Texts, Tradition and Community.
Okay.
And trying to find out how we deal with our texts from our various disciplines, whether it's the Constitution or whether it's the sacred scriptures of Islam or Christianity. What are the major dilemmas, and how do we become intellectually vulnerable to the conditions in which we live, and what is intellectual vulnerability all about?
And that's such an important thing, that you're able to bring different people from different disciplines. So it's not just people in the study of religion or even just particularly in the study of Islam, but a much broader range.
Yeah, one of the great things of Duke University that we're extremely interdisciplinary, and so the walls between disciplines are there, but they're also permeable. So there's a lot of cross-disciplinary conversation taking place, and makes it a really exciting place to be part of such an exciting project in Islamic studies.
That's wonderful. When you were last on the show, you talked about your book, Al-Ghazali and the Poetics of Imagination, a wonderful, wonderful book looking at Ghazali.
Thank you.
And in that book, there's a section on ethics. You've just said you're moving now to work on Muslim ethics. Can you talk a little bit about just that phrase? Because most of us as Muslims don't really know that phrase, Muslim ethics. We may know about Sharia, the law, but we don't know a lot about ethics. Maybe talk about the difference between law and ethics.
Thank you. Yes, in Muslim history, the study of ethics as ilm al-akhlaq, morality or moral discourse, or ilm al-adab, ethics, etc., has been widely known, although I think in the last 200, 300 years we've heard more and more people talking about Sharia. And one of the great things that I learned from Ghazali and the book that you referred to was that what we call law is actually not law. What we call Sharia, which means revealed norms, are really not norms and really not laws. When we think about law, we think about laws that are coercively enforced by a state, by some coercive authority. And as you know, in Muslim life, except for penal ordinances and penalties where you need some kind of judiciary to execute and enforce the authority to punish somebody, or to ensure that, if people's property is properly restored, etc. It's only in those instances that you need some kind of coercive authority. For the rest of Muslim life, it's about self-surveillance of how committed you are and how you think that you are going to respond to the obligations that you have. So really, in its true sense, what we call Sharia is actually moral philosophy, which is actually ethical, is about ethical conduct. So it's actually unfortunate that through Muslim history and over time, the discussion about Muslim ethics has become less and less prominent, and we have this discussion about Sharia or law to be so preeminent and so predominant, and at the same time it also does us not a lot of favors and also causes a lot of harm. So for instance, on a daily basis you see either somebody being punished for, you know, naming a teddy bear by the name of Muhammad by accident, as a teacher did in British teacher did in Khartoum, in Sudan, and it caused outrage. Or you would see normally a woman being subject to penalties and punishment in Nigeria. Or you recently, there's been a case in Afghanistan of somebody circulating a document from Iran, an article on women's rights, etc., and a court in Afghanistan has charged this man with blasphemy. So that is the kind of the face that what the world knows about Islam, is about these kind of very draconian punishments and penalties under the name and the guise of Sharia, whereas in fact Sharia is much more different. For instance, I mean, the Quran talks about the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ, that, oh, you Muhammad, you are on the best of conduct. And the Prophet's wife, Aisha, is asked, how would you describe the Prophet? And how do you describe his character? And she says, وَكَانَ خُلُقُهُ الْقُرْآنِ, that his character was the embodiment of the Quran, which in other words is about all the beauty. And what is the beauty of the Quran? The beauty of the Quran are these parables, these stories. It's not about the factual nature of these stories, whether, you know, Moses crossed the Red Sea, or whether they crossed the River Nile, or whether it is the son of Ismail, the son of Isaac, or whether it was, Ismail, the son of Abraham, or whether it is Isaac, the other son of Abraham, who was the son who Abraham was commanded to sacrifice. But it's about the way in which Abraham responds to a divine command. So I think, unfortunately, many Muslims get caught up in the kind of details and try to want to make a fact out of what is actually a poetic parable, etc., that makes us do things, make us better people. So when we listen to the Quran, and the Quran always says that those who throw their ears, man alqa sam'a wa huwa shaheed, that you throw your ears and you become a witness.
Through that.
In other words, you become a witness to the world around you. You must become a witness to the inner message of the teachings. So coming back to the discussion about ethics, is that ethics is at the center of the Islamic teachings. It's the core of what we call the Sharia. Unfortunately, Sharia has been misnamed as law. Sharia has been a lot of prejudice, and unfortunately sometimes very unfortunate things in the name of Sharia have taken place, etc. But it's really at odds with the spirit of the Sharia, which is actually the moral law. And one of the great things that people like Ghazali, or Ibn Rushd, or Shah Waliullah, many of the major Muslim thinkers have, what they have contributed is to remind us of the ethical and moral core at the heart of Islam. And I believe that the time that we are living in, etc., really requires the restoration of that moral and ethical core of Islam. And therefore I'm so preoccupied in wanting to make sure that the message and the ethical message of Islam gets out there in a whole range of activities.